Two huge agricultural victories were supposed to make farming safer, cleaner, and cheaper. They did, for a while. But those same victories, boll weevil eradication and Bt crop adoption, also removed the old chemical pressure that had been suppressing a different pest in the background. That pest complex, stink bugs, now threatens over $23 billion of American agriculture and is driving losses from U.S. soybeans and cotton to Brazilian production zones. This is not a story about one insect. It is a story about how system design creates second-order risk. Stink bugs are piercing, sucking pests that attack developing seeds, bolls, kernels, and fruit directly. They trigger yield loss, quality dockages, processing inefficiencies, and margin collapse across the value chain. And because many species feed late in the season, expensive early season protection often fades before the highest risk window even begins. Start with the global baseline. Arthropod pests and plant diseases remove 18 to 20% of crop production each year. The economic load is roughly $470 billion. That is before climate stress. Soybeans lose 21.4% on average. Corn loses 22.5%. Those are not edge case losses in weak systems. They are central losses in core global crops. Wheat loses 21.5%, and potatoes lose 17.2%. Warmer temperatures speed insect metabolism and reproduction. Foliage consumption rises and geographic range expands. The trend compounds. Now rewind to the period before the mid-1990s. Most cotton growers did not run dedicated stink bug programs. They were already spraying broad-spectrum chemistry for other targets. Stink bugs were being suppressed as collateral. Those sprays were mainly organophosphates and pyrethroids aimed at boll weevil and the bollworm complex. Field coverage was heavy and repeated, so stink bugs were hit even when nobody was scouting specifically for them. Control existed, but it was accidental. Because it was accidental, it was easy to miss. Growers saw fewer stink bug outcomes without naming the mechanism. The system looked stable from the outside. Then, two breakthroughs changed the architecture. The boll weevil eradication program. It expanded across the southern United States and succeeded at scale. That success removed a major reason for blanket, broad-spectrum sprays. The old chemical backdrop started to fade. The second was Bt cotton. These transgenic lines express Bacillus thuringiensis toxins for selective internal control of caterpillar pests. Growers reduced broad-spectrum drenching, and environmental gains were real. But selective control also left ecological gaps. Stink bugs were ready for that gap. They are polyphagous generalists that feed across dozens of crop species. Lepidopteran-specific Bt toxins do not control them. Once incidental suppression fell away, their pressure rose. Neonicotinoid seed treatments were supposed to cover part of this new risk. On paper, adoption and spending looked strong. Use climbed quickly between the mid-2000s and 2014. But timing biology did not cooperate. During that period, total U.S. neonicotinoid use roughly quadrupled. Clothianidin alone rose from 0.6 million pounds in 2006 to over 3.5 million pounds by 2014. That is a major input commitment. It still failed to deliver late-season protection. Coverage was also broad by acreage. Seed treatments were used on about 52 to 77% of cotton acres. In soybeans, coverage ran around 34 to 44%. Those levels were recorded during the 2010 to 2013 window. The issue was persistence, not adoption. Neonic concentrations inside plant tissue drop as biomass expands. By reproductive stages, much of that systemic shield is largely gone. Protection arrives early and leaves early. Stink bugs are mostly late-season feeders. Migration pressure builds from mid-July through harvest, when tissue concentrations have faded. Growers pay for prophylactic seed protection that often provides zero residual defense when losses are decided. That mismatch is the paradox. Now look at species structure. This is a multi-species complex, not a single curve. Species differ in movement, reproduction, and chemistry response. Management has to work across all of them at once. Chinavia hilaris, the green stink bug, dominates much of the southeast and keeps pushing into the Midwest. Females live about 53.5 days on average. They lay barrel-shaped egg clusters of roughly 30. That reproductive pace sustains repeated field pressure. Nazara virigula, the southern green stink bug, likely originated in Ethiopia. It can move from egg to adult in only 35 to 37 days. In southern states, it can produce 3 to 5 generations per year. A single flight can cover up to 1,000 meters. Euschistus cervus, the brown stink bug, brings different risk. It can travel about 15.9 kilometers within 22 hours. It also carries elevated tolerance to standard pyrethroid chemistry, so common insecticide options often underperform when pressure builds. None of these species matches the red-banded stink bug, Piazodorus gildinii, for damage. It was first a major soybean pest in South America and has since expanded into U.S. zones. Its salivary enzyme mix is unusually destructive in legumes. Economic injury appears at much lower population levels. That saliva profile tears tissue fast. Pods flatten, seeds deform, and damage intensity scales quickly in reproductive stages. One hallmark symptom is delayed leaf maturity. The plant stays green and resists harvest, even when pods have ripened. Difference clearly. For red-banded stink bug, action can start at 16 bugs per 100 sweeps. For green and brown stink bugs, the comparison threshold is 36 per 100 sweeps. That gap changes spray timing, cost, and risk. Some states push thresholds lower still. Alabama and Louisiana use a trigger of just 4 bugs per 25 sweeps under high risk. That is an aggressive response, but it reflects observed loss behavior. Waiting longer can erase margin too quickly. Then there is Haliomorpha halis, the brown marmorated stink bug. This invasive species from East Asia was first detected in Allentown, Pennsylvania in 1996. Since then, its footprint and host range have widened steadily. It is now embedded in multiple production systems. Its host breadth is extraordinary. It attacks more than 300 plant species across 49 botanical families. Conservative estimates place threatened U.S. agricultural output near $21 billion. The scale is no longer regional. Range confirmation keeps moving north. Wisconsin had confirmed brown marmorated stink bug in over 50 counties by 2025. That is a warning signal for colder zones previously seen as lower risk. Warming winters can amplify this pattern. What makes stink bugs uniquely costly is feeding style. They do not chew external foliage like many pests. Needle-like stylets pierce seeds, bolls, kernels, and fruit directly. Then salivary enzymes liquefy plant cells through extraoral digestion. In cotton, young bolls are especially vulnerable. Bolls younger than 10 days often drop from the plant after feeding. That is direct yield loss before quality loss is even measured. Early damage reshapes the entire crop profile. Georgia greenhouse work exposed another layer. Adult stink bugs transmitted boll rot pathogens to previously clean bolls more than 50% of the time. Internal rot then destroys seeds and suppresses lint growth. Callus warts and severe staining follow. Soybean injury follows the same core mechanism. Enzymes injected into developing pods cause localized necrosis, pod abortion, and seed deformation. Puncture points also open pathways for secondary fungal and bacterial infection. Quality and volume both decline together. Heavy infestations can trigger green stem syndrome. Seeds are damaged, hormonal shutdown signals fail, and the plant stays green long past maturity. Combines choke on wet tissue, fuel use rises, and harvest slows. Field logistics become part of the loss. Even corn is not exempt. A single stink bug feeding on one seedling for 1 week can cut yield by an average of 5.9 bushels per acre. That is meaningful loss from very small observed pressure. Early season events matter. The economic ranking is now explicit. In 2023, a survey across 19 soybean-producing states identified stink bugs as the most economically damaging invertebrate complex. Those states represented 63% of U.S. soybean acreage. This was not a narrow sample. In that 1 year, estimated soybean destruction reached 12.56 million bushels. Foliar insecticide spending targeted at stink bugs alone reached $78.12 million. Both came from the same pressure system. Control costs and crop losses moved together. By 2024, the complex represented 25.4% of combined national insect management costs and yield losses. Average management spending was $15.52 per acre. Direct crop losses averaged $8.88 per acre. The burden is now a core budget line. 9 states listed stink bugs as the #1 pest: Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and Virginia. That geographic spread matters. The issue is not one microclimate. It is a regional production structure problem. Long-run state data confirms variability without relief. Mississippi records from 2013 through 2024 show annual soybean yield losses between 2.77% and 7.70%. The range moves year to year, but never disappears. Risk is persistent. The damage does not stop at field boundaries. Stink bug-fed soybeans reach elevators shriveled, discolored, and deformed. That immediately triggers quality penalties. Losses continue after harvest. Along the mid-Gulf coast of Texas, damaged grain can run 30 to 40% of harvested volume. Quality dockages there can reach $2 per bushel. The penalty is market-enforced and immediate. Growers cannot negotiate around it easily. At a 50-bushel yield, that dockage can remove $100 per acre of gross revenue. The crop may look intact by tonnage. The cash outcome still collapses at sale. Margin disappears before transport. Corn follows its own discount logic. Dockages begin once total damaged kernels exceed 5%. At 9% damage plus elevated moisture, terminal penalties can remove roughly $36 to $44 per acre from margin. Quality thresholds become financial tripwires. Cotton carries a different grading penalty. USDA high-volume instrument classing rewards a micronair window of 3.5 to 4.9. Stink bug injury can push readings outside that range, and boll rot can degrade color grade. Price slips occur through classing, not just yield. On a 1,200-pound lint crop, a combined 4-cent per pound micronair and color discount removes $48 per acre. That is before other stressors are counted. In low-price seasons, that one quality penalty can decide survival. The hit is hard to absorb. Baseline cotton pricing makes this sharper. When lint prices sit around 70 to 76 cents per pound, there is little cushion left. A modest grading downgrade can wipe out the entire profit margin. Quality risk becomes existential risk. Processing plants absorb another layer. Stink bug injury can create hard-locked bolls, where necrotic warts fuse lint to the carpal wall. Mechanical spindle pickers then fail to extract fiber cleanly. Recovery drops even before gin-level losses are measured. In infested plots, hard-locked boll counts can run 1.4 to 1.9-fold above controls. Seed cotton entering the gins separates less efficiently. Throughput slows, energy use rises, and gin turnout falls. Losses spread across the chain. Soybean handling quality also degrades physically. Damaged seed alters bulk density and angle of repose, raising bridging and jamming risk in silos. During dehulling, compromised seeds shatter early and send fragments into waste streams. Processing friction becomes a cost center. Chemical composition shifts too. Total lipid content declines, and key linoleic and linolenic fractions drop. Sound seeds can carry 26.3% more sucrose than bug-damaged seeds. Value per bushel falls on quality chemistry, not only volume. Timing made this worse in late 2020. The renewable diesel expansion pushed soybean oil economics into the center of crush value. Soybean oil prices nearly tripled after that point. Market incentives shifted quickly. Historically, oil contributed about 33% of crush value. In the new cycle, that share moved to roughly 43 to 50%. The most valuable component became the one stink bugs damage most directly. Revenue sensitivity rose as pest pressure intensified. Regional margins were weak before this pressure. Georgia projected 2024 returns above variable costs for non-irrigated cotton at negative $50 per acre. Mississippi projected negative $31.87 on non-irrigated cotton. That is the baseline, before late season hits. Mississippi also projected irrigated corn at negative $10.81. Illinois projected corn returns between -$79 and -$113 per acre across soil types. These systems have little slack. They are already margin compressed. Brazil mirrors the pressure with different species composition. In Brazilian soybean fields, the neotropical brown stink bug makes up about 82% of adult populations. It drives up to 60% of all insecticide applications. The pest complex dominates spray strategy. Cost inflation there has been severe. Between 2020 and 2024, production costs rose from $172 per metric ton to $337. That is near doubling in 4 years. Cerrado profitability fell to its lowest level in 2 decades. So, what is the response architecture now? It starts with better timing, not just more chemistry. Chemical control still anchors first-line defense, but profitability now depends on thresholds that move with risk. Auburn University modeling found the best net farm outcome at 3 bugs per 25 sweeps. That is earlier action than many legacy programs used. Earlier intervention can protect quality before irreversible injury. Timing now matters as much as product choice. Southeast cotton programs also tightened injury triggers. The old static rule used 20% internal boll injury. New dynamic rules tighten that threshold to 10% during bloom weeks 3 through 5. That single shift added about $19 per acre in average net returns. Trap cropping is scaling beside threshold redesign. Narrow strips of attractive grain sorghum are planted between overwintering habitat and cotton. Migrating stink bugs accumulate in those strips first. Sprays can then be concentrated on perimeter zones instead of whole fields. AI-guided spraying adds another lever. Iowa State field trials showed chemical volume cuts of 76%. In those trials, savings were about $15.70 per acre across 415 acres. Precision can cut cost without losing response speed. Biological control opens a different front. In Brazil, mass releases of the egg parasitoid wasp, Telenomus potaci, pushed parasitism above 70%. Release programs use densities around 6,500 wasps per hectare. That is suppression through ecology, not just chemistry. North America is deploying a targeted parasitoid strategy. The samurai wasp, Trisulcus japonicus, is being used against brown marmorated stink bug. A $3.7 million USDA NIFA grant to North Carolina State University supports national management. Scale-up is now institutional. RNA interference is moving toward deployment. Double-stranded RNA foliar sprays enter stink bug cells and trigger gene silencing pathways. The process shuts down proteins the insect cannot survive without. Honeybees and beneficial predators remain unharmed. Commercial momentum is already visible. Greenlight Biosciences received EPA registration for the first RNA-based biopesticides. The program was backed by $25 million in Series C capital. Regulatory and financial signals are now aligned. Lab data in red-banded stink bug is promising, but still early. Targeting essential genes produced 51.6% adult mortality within 14 days of ingestion. In 2026, University of Queensland work showed sprayed RNA moving systemically from leaves to roots through vascular tissue. Delivery limits are loosening. Further out, CRISPR tools are being tested. Developed an E-drive concept that replaces resistant alleles with susceptible versions and then self-eliminates from the genome. It aims to reset chemical vulnerability without permanently altering the species. That could change resistance economics if it scales. Conventional breeding is advancing in parallel. Programs are screening germplasm libraries for native resistance traits. Genotypes IAC100 and PI558040 show reduced seed weight loss under feeding pressure. Soybean cyst nematode resistance already prevents about $2 billion in annual losses. That is the benchmark for what host resistance can deliver. The paradox is now visible. Eradicating boll weevil and deploying Bt crops were landmark achievements with major benefits, but they also opened ecological space for a stink bug complex that now drives the largest insect management burden in U.S. soybeans. Pressure then transmits, from field to gin to crusher to exchange. Whether this defense stack scales fast enough is the core question. Dynamic thresholds, precision spraying, parasitoid wasps, RNA interference, CRISPR, and host resistance are advancing, but margins are already negative in many systems. A stink bug wave that removes 5 bushels per acre and triggers a 5% kernel damage dockage can erase cash flow and end the farm.